Welcome back, everybody. It's the lawyer you know. We're talking more Alec Baldwin and the shooting that occurred on the set of Rust that ended up killing one of the cinematographers and injuring the director himself. So a lot of talk has been made about what's going to happen to Alec Baldwin, who was the lead actor and co-producer on the film. And there was a press conference recently where local law enforcement and the lead officer in the case answered questions and gave kind of a report of what's going on, as well as one of the assistant district attorneys in that district came and answered questions and kind of explained how they're going to look at this case. Give me 1 second. Let me just hit that. So hopefully we don't have a lot of interruptions during this video. So today we're going to just give a little update about what happened at that press conference and what I expect to kind of happen as this investigation begins. And then I'll answer questions if there are any. So throughout the press conference, we didn't learn a ton, but there were a few key points that were brought out that let us know exactly what's going to happen now. So they are doing an investigation with an eye towards potential criminal charges. That's something that a lot of people said, oh, it was just an accident. These things happen sometimes. It's horrible, but it was just an accident. Nobody could have prevented it. That is not what happened in this case. That's at least what it seems as far as local law enforcement and the district attorney thinks at this point over in New Mexico. They are open to everything. They haven't ruled out anyone or anything. That means even Alec Baldwin, which some of the questions specifically surrounded him. Is he being investigated for a potential criminal charge? They wouldn't answer it, but they basically said yes. They said they're not ruling out anyone. They are doing investigations about criminal charges as well. They're going to see if there was any intent. They're going to see if there was any criminal negligence. So that is something that is going to be investigated. We don't know what's going to come from it, but that opens up a ton of specifications to this investigation. One of them being the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. And to date, the officer said that everyone has cooperated. Everyone has given statements at this point, and everyone is working with law enforcement. Nobody has lawyered up and shut up, basically, but I expect to see that happen if someone becomes a criminal suspect and if they continue down the path of investigating some of these people that were on set for criminal charges, especially Alec Baldwin. What was said at this press conference may be enough for Alec Baldwin to stop cooperating and hire himself a lawyer. Would not surprise me. People have done that for much less because they did not rule him out as a criminal suspect yet. Additionally, they said that there were over 90 people on set that day. So they have to get a lot of statements still, and they're hoping that everybody does cooperate with this investigation. They have taken statements from, they said there was just a close-knit group of people that actually had access to this firearm that were around when it was shot, and they've already gotten statements from all of them. They didn't really give us too much more detail of what they got. An investigation of the scene brought out the fact that there were over 500 rounds on set, and it was a mix of dummy rounds, blanks, and live rounds. They seemed to confirm that some of those live rounds were shot during target practice by some people. We don't know if it was Alec Baldwin, if it was part of the movie, or if it was people messing around. But there were spent shell casings elsewhere on set, not just where the two actual employees were shot, one of them being killed. They do believe they found the spent shell that was the one that was shot into the director and the cinematographer. The director, they were able to match it with the one that they dislodged from his body, which they also did. The director has also given a statement, and he's been cooperating throughout the case. So they did say if probable cause exists after an investigation, they will make an arrest and they will bring criminal charges. So that's what this is all coming down to. They also said, they mentioned by name the armor, I can't remember what her name is, and then the assistant director Halls. And one of the questions from the crowd was, what about these previous complaints of Director Halls and the fact that he's had previous complaints that he doesn't take safety precautions seriously on set? We're dealing with pyrotechnics and firearms. And the officer said they will be looking into that. They will be investigating it. And they will be taking statements from those other sets to see how he acted there and if there's some kind of pattern of criminal negligence, basically, or just negligence in general. So there's a lot that's going to come out. So while it didn't seem like a lot came out in this press conference, plenty of tidbits came out from a legal point of view that this is in fact a criminal investigation going on right now. And big names could be swept up in this because Alec Baldwin is confirmed as the one that was holding the gun and pulled the trigger that did kill the cinematographer. So that's usually where you start in a case like this. Let me see if I have any other notes that I've missed here. I think that is it. They had no comment on a lot of things like the DA, no comment on what charges would be brought or what charges they're specifically investigating. But she was there to answer questions with local law enforcement because you don't have the DA there for civil charges. You don't have the DA there just for any investigation. It's got to be a criminal investigation. There's got to be, criminal charges at least being looked at. And the DA usually decides what those charges actually are because they have to go to trial and prove those charges. And they work with local law enforcement to see what evidence they're able to gather because they're going to use that evidence during the criminal trial, obviously, if they determine that criminal charges should be brought against anyone on set, including Alec Baldwin. So if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please take a second and subscribe. We like to break down a lot of the things that are going on in the news and court cases and investigations that have either a criminal or a injury angle to them, since that's what our firm does: personal injury, car accident, slip and fall, wrongful death, and criminal defense. So that's what we're doing here with this case. Looks like there's going to be a criminal investigation. There's probably going to be a wrongful death claim brought at some point. So we're breaking it down, going along the ride with you. We like to do it on YouTube because it lets us reach a large audience that gives us their diverse opinions about what they think about these situations, how they think the world should work, because we're kind of in it as lawyers. We're in this little web. We help write the laws and edit them and see how they're put into practice. But the people that it affects as much as us, because we're also citizens of this country and other countries, we like to get your input. You could all be potential jurors in whatever jurisdiction it is that you live. So it's important for us as trial lawyers to understand what potential jurors think and feel about these situations, because it helps us work on our cases and work for our clients as well. So make sure you subscribe if you're into that. And if you're specifically into this story, make sure you like this video so we can keep bringing you content on this Alec Baldwin case. All right, so I am going to get into the comments now. I am going to look at the questions, answer as many of them as I can. When somebody says, why would he do this, or how could something like this happen? Usually I don't know those answers because I wasn't there, but a lot of it that has to do with the investigation, the legality, what charges could come, how this type of stuff works. Then I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. All right. Barb Red Green, hello. Thanks for doing this. Happy to be here. Sylvia, you made it live. Good, good. Let's see. Alistasi, you're welcome. Very tragic and heartbreaking. I agree. So, Caitlin Clary, I don't know how something like this could happen. I was in the military, and there are so many safety precautions with weapons that would prevent something like this. So you would think that, but it seems like some of the procedures on sets in movies have inexperienced people actually doing the safety checks. And like I said, 90 people were on set approximately. They left for lunch, and then they came back. Who knows what happened while they were gone for lunch, number one. Number two, some people said that Alec Baldwin was actually firing this gun before he fired the fatal shot. There's a lot of things that we don't know yet that we will. But yes, none of these multi-million-dollar actors and industries would be involved on sets of movies if this was likely to happen. So you're right. This is not something that should ever happen. All right, Kara, good question. During the press conference, they mentioned lead projectile. Does this mean it was an actual bullet? I'm confused by the terms, and we don't have handguns here in the UK. So the officer actually expounded on that and said, yes, it was a live round that they believe it was. And the projectile is the part that actually projects out of the gun and into, I believe it was the director that he was talking about. And then the spent shell is what they also found, which is something that kind of goes the other way. So it's not the projectile. So that's why he was using that type of ammunition terminology. But yes, from everything that we've heard and been reported so far, it was a live round that shot these two employees on set. But he did say, so he just said 500 rounds of ammunition. Somebody had to ask, were those all live rounds? And he said, no, it was a mix. So we don't know how. There could have been 5 live rounds. There could have been 495 live rounds. We don't know. It would make a big difference to lay people because we can't understand, like, is it really worth getting that perfect shot? What should we think as a society that it's not good enough if we have to CGI the smoke and the spark. We have to have a real one for our movies and for us as critics of a movie to enjoy that. What does that say about us as a society? That blanks and technology has allowed us to create bullets that don't hurt people, yet the shot is not good enough for us in Hollywood, and we take this chance with live rounds. To me, it will change the way I criticize any movie when it deals with like fighting scenes or war scenes or anything like that. If they're not real enough, then I've got a problem, because too real can get too real too fast. Miranda Goldsmith, weird question. On a civil level, does the production have insurance, or the landowner's property insurance cover this? So not likely to be the landowner. There's going to be some sort of indemnity agreement. I would think the production would absolutely have liability insurance, because people trip and fall on sets all the time. Something falls on top of them. An actor gets injured. Actors and even some big-time producers, directors, and cinematographers have their own personal insurance if something was to happen to them on a movie set. There's also work comp potentially insurance, depending on if some of these people are employees versus independent contractors, where if you're injured on the job, including death or being shot, then work comp could cover some of that. So there's all sorts of insurances that could come into play. Additionally, any of these parties or entities or companies that don't have insurance, it doesn't mean you can't sue them. It just means you go straight for the company if they don't have that shield of insurance. And plenty of these people and companies involved are very collectible and do not want lawsuits filed against their company or their person personally. All right, let's see here. Alice from Sweden. The story is really big. It was even on the Swedish news. Wow, it's crazy. Well, everyone watches movies, I assume, right? So that's going to be something that crosses all barriers. Rita Baker, why do you think live rounds would be allowed when filming? There's only one real reason I can think of, is to get the shot, to get the feel for all of us watching that it's a real gunshot, a real wound, a real death, a real whatever, a real spark, a real shell casing, a real projectile. That's all I can really think of as the only reason they would ever allow live ammo, is they want the movie to feel real. And unfortunately, this is all too real for us. So Melisasi, can you explain cold and hot gun terms? There seems to be different meanings. So and again, I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not a weapons expert. We would hire that if we had a case like this to explain it better to you. But from my understanding of prior cases using things like this, is hot weapon is ready to fire, has live rounds in it. A cold weapon is either in safety mode, doesn't have bullets in it, can be picked up, held, cleaned, whatever it may be. So it's pretty much self-explanatory. Hot means be ready and be on guard. Cold means it's in a safe spot right now. Sandy G, yes, in the very first short I did on this, I said it just reminds me of Brandon Lee. He was shot on the set of The Crow, and it was a similar thing. They just couldn't understand how the live round got in there. His mom did bring a wrongful death lawsuit. So Leah Randolph, do you think this could have been a setup? Yeah, I mean, we don't know, and I don't like to jump to conspiracy theories right off the bat, but absolutely could have been a setup. I would think the target would be more Alec Baldwin than it would this cinematographer or director even. But if somebody wanted to set up Alec Baldwin, it seems like this gun was available and they could have doctored it or put live rounds in it without him knowing. All right, let's see here. So Sylvia, this was an accident, not a street crime. Yes, there's definitely negligence, but I don't see a criminal act. So there is criminal negligence. There is involuntary manslaughter. There is accidental killing. That are all criminal charges, even if it was not purposeful, even if it was not intentional. So I think we need to keep that in mind when determining whether or not there was any criminal act here. And additionally, if anybody did mess with doctors, set up the gun to be in that manner, that would be intentional. That would be a criminal act. We don't have any evidence of that at this point, though. All right, I'm going to give it about 5 more minutes here. This was just a quick update and Q&A for everybody that could join us here on the lunch hour. Give it about 5 more minutes, see if any other questions come through. But what I expect to see here is if people start lawyering up, I think the criminal heat is going to get hotter and hotter on Alec Baldwin and everybody else that was involved, especially Alec Baldwin, the armor, and the assistant director Halls are the 3 main people of interest right now from listening to the DA, the local law enforcement, and all of the reports. So those are the ones to keep an eye on for any criminal act. And then as far as negligence goes or wrongful death, everybody could be involved there. Everybody that took a part in it, everybody that got the weapons, got the props, got the guns, got the live rounds, checked them at any point, safety check, lunch break determinations, producers, everybody. I mean, everybody could basically be involved in the wrongful death to see if there was any negligence on anybody else's part. What is the sentence for something unintentional? I don't know what it is there. It's a 4th-degree felony. I think here it would be somewhere around 5 years, but I don't know. I don't know what it is there in New Mexico. It's a good question. I'll have to look that up. So Mitchell Rockensteiner, was Baldwin ever put into custody or was he free to come and go? I did not see anything that he was ever put into custody, and a custodial interrogation was done, because then again, he's got certain rights as somebody that's in custody, arrested, not free to leave. So I don't think he was ever put in custody from anything that I saw or read. Iffy Angel, you're welcome. Sylvia, super chat. Peter, I love your channel. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Really digging Pete's coverage of the home trial. Great job, guys. Yeah, that's been a big one. If you guys haven't caught any of the Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes videos, go to our page. I think there's been 8 or 9 updates on it. You can binge watch all of them and catch up with literally everything that's happened in the trial. We've got a bunch of other cases on there too if you want to follow. Next week, we've got the Rittenhouse trial starting. We've got the Bitcoin creator trial starting. So if you guys want to follow along with those, they'll be starting next week. So we got a lot of things coming with this channel, which is why I always say, make sure you subscribe, hit the alerts so you don't miss anything that's coming out, so you don't miss our lives. We'll jump on and do lives whenever something happens on these cases, if I have time, like today I happen to have at lunch. So that's why we're jumping on and doing this one. All right, so up to 28 months in prison in New Mexico, 4th-degree felony. Demetria Davis, boy, this is why this channel is so awesome. Like literally, while stuff's happening, we were watching the R. Kelly trial, something would come out and people would post about it. People would share transcripts. That's what makes this type of stuff so fun, is the community gets together, we can get answers. And once we have answers, they usually bring more questions and more dialogue and things we can talk about. So 28 months in prison. There's been a big public policy discussion in the legal field as to whether anything accidental should actually land you in jail. And a lot of the vehicular homicide cases where, you know, someone's drag racing accident, someone dies, should they go to jail for something that was accidental? So here, an accidental killing gets you up to 28 months in prison in New Mexico. So that's interesting. And I'd be interested to hear what all of you think in the comments about negligence and accidental crimes or killings or deaths carrying prison sentences with them. They didn't mean to do anything wrong. Maybe this inexperienced person just did something that was lazy. Alec Baldwin was, you know, angry, tired, whatever it may be, and he just got up and did the practice and shot her, and there was no intent at all. Do those people deserve to be punished criminally? Now, civilly, sure. You know, it's money. They have caused harm, therefore they need to pay for it. But criminally, prison sentences, I don't necessarily know if I agree with that. It doesn't really do anyone good. Especially when it's accidental, and that's what we're talking about, is negligent killing. So, Demetria, you work at a civil office. That's awesome. Where? Oh, just kidding. Demetria said, sorry, 18 months. So, whatever. I'll look it up and I'll do it in another video, just confirm what it is. But 18 months, 28 months, whatever it is, there is prison time that follows a 4th-degree felony in New Mexico. But we got another question here from Kara. Is it possible to charge the director as a responsible party for the shooting, even though he was shot? How would that work? Absolutely. So there have been times where, yeah, criminals have been injured during their criminal act, you know, and if he's the one that used the gun last or put the bullet in the gun or was supposed to check the gun, even though he's the one that got injured, absolutely there could be a criminal aspect to that as well. There have been cases where people do things that are crimes, like, let's say, DUI. You drive drunk, you get in an accident, you get hurt. In Florida, there's an enhancement for serious bodily injury and a DUI. Well, you would think that that means the person that you hit with your car has to be seriously injured, but it's not. In Florida, if you're in the car and you get a DUI and you crash into a pole and you get seriously injured, your charge of DUI can be enhanced by your serious bodily injury. So it would be something similar to that. He can also be negligent in this case, even though he was one of the parties injured. All right, Melisasi. I hear people saying that the actor is ultimately responsible because they did not check the weapon. What do you think about that? I think it would depend on state's protocol. Absolutely. It depends on procedure, right? We can all say how we would do it. Same thing with law enforcement all the time. We're like, I can't believe they did this. Well, if there is police procedure that has been ratified and published and all police officers are supposed to do this and that's what a police officer did, then usually that's not negligence. Same thing here. If Alec Baldwin is told, you don't check the gun, we have people who check the gun, don't go opening it up because you opening it up and looking in there could cause other problems. We could have a live round second after the blank. I don't know why they would. I'm just saying if that's procedure. And if the procedure is Alec Baldwin and you get this gun, all you do is pick it up and shoot it, and he followed that procedure, then yes, that could be reasonable. Now, if it says you're the one holding the gun, you need to check it always before you shoot it. You're the last line of defense and the last check before it actually goes into live action, then he would be liable. So it depends on what the appropriate procedure is to find that line of negligence and what a reasonable person would do in his situation. So that's important. Yeah, Iffy Angel, I'm glad some people's opinions are not the final say as well. Because this thing is not any one person's decision. They go through protocols, they go through groups, they go through all sorts of levels before they become procedure and rules and laws and statutes. All right, so we've hit the 20-minute mark here. This was fun. This was a quick one. We got some questions answered. We got an update on what's going on with Alec Baldwin. Make sure you share our channel with your friends or anybody you know that's interested in this type of discussion or these types of cases. Again, make sure you like this video if you want us to keep doing updates on Alec Baldwin and Rust. But for now, that's all we've got. And make sure you check out the other videos on The Lawyer You Know.